I just think that there's got to be more common sense as to how it's done. I mean, when you look back at the way it used to be, let's go back to the way it used to be. The way it used to be, okay? The way it used to be was, remember the Steelers, the year the Dolphins went 17-0.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they play the AFC Championship game? The Orange Bowl or Three Rivers Stadium?
Yeah.
They played in Three Rivers Stadium.
Yeah.
Because under the rotation, the AFC Central, it was their turn to host. It had nothing to do with record. I mean, in the run that the Dolphins made to 17-0, they only played one home playoff game. They beat the Cleveland Browns. Then they played the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, and Larry Seiple took off in that 37-yard fake punt to kind of turn the game around. Bob Greasy came in the second half, bailed out Earl Morrall, and they rallied and beat the Steelers, and then, of course, went to the Super Bowl, beat Washington 14-7. How long did it take for them to change that archaic rule? I mean, it was an archaic rule.
Sure.
I mean, and that to me is, when you look at some of the rules that they've had in the past, it makes no sense.
No.
I mean, the way the NHL just did the Stanley Cup playoffs makes no sense. I don't understand that.
Nope.
Okay? You got to go 1 through 8 in each conference by points. Where if I'll give the division champ an automatic in. That to me is the reward. The automatic bid is to the champion that gets them into the tournament regardless of record. So back to Seattle, 7-9, won their division. They won the West. Okay? 49ers put up no fight.
No, not that year.
Oh, I think you're talking about most years.
That, I think, was the year. Didn't they have the Sunday night game where the Rams and Seahawks played for the right to win the NFC West?
Yeah.
It was like 7-8 against 7-8. Yeah,
it was awful.
Or 6-8 against 6-8, whatever it was.
Whatever it was. And to me, the division gets you in.
Yes.
After that, where you were seated.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay? Where you're seated is where you're seated.
Yeah.
And that to me is, what the bottom line is. Some of the stuff's so archaic. I mean, in Major League Baseball, they finally have it down now, and they've got it right in terms of how they do divisional winners, how they do wild cards, things like that. But it took them a long time to get there. I mean, there's so many things that now we consider to be common sense.
Yeah.
That I can't figure out why they weren't common sense before. So now this playoff idea, it's some radical idea? It's not a radical idea.
No. Detroit's
the 1 seed, and if it turns out the 49ers have these, let's see, they still have, say the Lions.
The Packers have the second best record.
Let's just say the Lions are the 2nd seed.
Okay.
They're the 2nd seed.
Yeah.
And it turns out the 49ers win the West, but they're the 7th, but they have the 7th best record of the playoff teams.
Yeah.
They're the 7th seed.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get a home game. They got to go to Detroit.
Yeah, and if the Packers are a game behind the Lions, they get the 2nd seed.
Right.
Or the first, whatever. Yeah.
Again, same story. If you have 3 teams, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings were a perfect example last year.
Last year, absolutely.
The Vikings, right, had, I think, the 2nd best record in the NFC.
Yeah.
And they ended up
division title was on the line that last game of the season.
They ended up being a 5 seed and having to play in Glendale against the Rams.
Yeah.
Because remember, they had to move that because of
the fires. Yeah.
Because of the wildfires.
Still had to play a road game. And it's just that was one. Seahawks Saints were another. 49ers Packers the year it was 5 below and the Niners beat Rodgers in 2013, whatever year that was. That's 3 off the top of my head.
Did they beat the other Packers too?
They beat the Packers many times with Rodgers. They just never beat them with Favre. Beat them once, but they shouldn't have won that game.
Is that the
fumble?
The fumble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, the Rice fumble. But yeah, that's at least 3 just right up the top of my head. Where
Rice is a myth.
He was
A myth.
200 touchdowns. I don't know what that's. It's only 200 more than I scored. And at the pro level, at least, I think I might have scored midget football a couple times.
All right. There are certain statements that don't need to be made that America assumed. Oh my goodness. You see George Wendt died yesterday?
I did. How about that? Yeah, that's
so
one of the great shows, without a doubt, and one of the great characters of that show. Yeah. Walks in the bar, everybody yells his name.
How are you?
As his usual spot.
How are you, Norm? The dog eat dog world, Sammy, and I'm eating milk bone underwear. So I was able to get tickets up in the, I don't know what it's called today, but that time it was called the EMC Club. It's the club level at Fenway Park, up right above home plate. So I got 4 tickets, and my brother, the Red Sox were playing the Phillies. In fact, the Red Sox won 12-1. Jim Thome had the only Phillies run a home run in the 9th inning.
That sounds about right.
It was 12-1.
Especially around that era.
Pedro Martinez pitched and was brilliant, right? And on a night he didn't have to be brilliant. And Tom Werner, everybody knows John Henry's the primary owner of the Red Sox, but Tom Werner is also a high percentage owner of the team. Still is. And of course he was one of the producers of the TV show Cheers.
Absolutely.
So we go up to the club, and they had the actual bar from the set of the TV show Cheers in the club.
That's awesome.
So my brother's a diehard Yankees fan. I mean, diehard. Hates the Red Sox. Hates them. Okay. And I took him to the game, and I said, hey, Kev, check that out over there. I said, that's the bar from the actual TV show Cheers. He goes, no. I said, yeah, it's from the set. I said, in fact, see that one right there? I said, that's Norm's chair.
Norm, yep.
So he goes over. You're allowed to.
Yeah.
He goes over and sits in Norm's chair.
Nice.
So he's sitting in Norm's chair. He looks over at me and says, you know what? Steve, I hate the Red Sox. I hate them. But this is pretty cool.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. Absolutely.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one episode, I think, where somebody took his seat.
Oh, really? Oh, I know they had to have done that.
Yeah, he took his seat, and then he faked a heart attack, dropped down. They got up to help him out. He ran out of the chair. Absolutely. Just, yep. It was fitting on the final, and the ironic part of all, man, let's talk about strange ways things work sometimes. That was literally the eve of yesterday. Well, he passed away Tuesday. Yesterday was the anniversary of the final episode there in 1993.
It was.
Yeah, it was fitting in the final episode that obviously you're going to have Ted Danson, a.k.a. Sam, there. It's his bar on the final spot. But, it's fitting that the final person in there was Norm. and that's just to help make that show as spectacular as it was.
Oh, great cast.
Yeah, incredible cast.
Ratzenberger, John Ratzenberger, as Cliffy.
Yeah.
You know,
you had Woody Harrelson.
And Fraser Crane.
A lot of spinoffs because of that show. You had Frasier was a spinoff of that show. Becker was a spinoff of that show.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
Yep. Just did a great TV piece on the first battle of the Revolutionary War. So it was terrific. And means something to me because I They just went up there for the 250 up in Lexington. Yeah. And so I saw that. How about the college people, in order to attempt to codify this House ruling, is essentially saying if you don't follow the rule, people aren't going to play you. In other words, you're ineligible. Now, why are they doing this? They're doing it quite simply because the state of Tennessee evidently has a law that says, nah, you don't need to follow the rules. Okay. Hey, how about that one? Yeah. In other words, they don't have to, that's what it's all about. And Ross Dellinger is the one that put the story out. He was going to do an expose on you, and then got bored. So what? This house settlement and everything that goes with it, okay, is amazing because Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee, it's a 6-page bill, so it's not complicated. A lot of people are going to these shorter bills because they're worried, like they've noticed over the years that on these 800-page bills that you usually just get to page 3.
That's right. If I'm like, yeah, that far.
That's in the summary.
Just read the front and back. You got half the book right there.
That's always love. You always read the introduction of the book, and then you go to chapter
just go right to the epilogue and go to the back. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I didn't think he was the killer. Okay. Tennessee Senate Bill number 536. Its details were brought to life last week. Paves the way for the University of Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Memphis, okay, Middle Tennessee State, and their affiliated collectives to break house settlement-related rules and prevents college sports' new enforcement entity from penalizing the schools. In layman's terms, this is where you come in.
That's right.
I always love when they do that. In layman's terms, and then your picture comes up on the screen. In layman's terms. And by the way, you represent all of us. Okay. In layman's terms, the law is a launch missile toward plans from the NCAA and power conferences to police the revenue-sharing era of college sports, taking aim at the athletic compensation cap, the severe penalties for rule breakers, and policies that prevent phony booster-backed name, image, and likeness deals to players. My sentiments exactly.
She's
in the hallway. No. God.
Yeah.
All right. So now, okay, now the power conferences actually have plans to combat such laws. I feel like we're reading a script for As the World Turns. Officials from the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC. Jason, those are the Power Four.
That's right.
Thanks for confirming. Are circulating a draft of a groundbreaking and first of its kind document intended to prevent universities from using their state laws to violate new enforcement rules, and a wholly stunning concept that requires schools to waive their right to pursue legal challenges against the new enforcement entity, the College Sports Commission. So now we're coming up with rules to fight a state law.
I was going to say to fight a law, basically. Yep. Uh-huh.
The document, now viewed by dozens of leading school administrators, would bind institutions to the enforcement policies, even if their state law is contradictory, and would exempt the CSC, that's the College Sports Commission, from lawsuits from member schools over enforcement decisions, offering instead a route for schools to pursue arbitration. The document, described as an affiliation or membership agreement, is not finalized, but a draft of the contract has been distributed to several school presidents, general counsels, and athletic directors, many of whom have expressed legal concerns, shockingly, with several of the document's concepts, which are now being refined. It's like being with you in a staff meeting. The document is meant to be signed by all power conference schools, perhaps as well as others opting into the settlement, as a way to bind the group and provide stability around the enforcement rules. That includes, most notably, decisions from the new Deloitte-run NIL clearinghouse, dubbed NIL Go, an entity expected to more strictly enforce booster pay for standard NIL things. Hi, I'm Jason Lord for Friendly's Restaurants. Don't worry that Friendly's has filed Chapter 7.
I'm here to pay. That's right. Friendly's and Rite Aid.
Those are your two big NILs.
That's right. Can't believe they did that. I can't believe they didn't tell me enough about Toys R Us before I took the deal.
I signed it right before Christmas. One athletic director said, quote, "You have to sign it or we don't play you." Okay. As a condition of membership, you must comply with the settlement and enforcement, says one power conference president, with knowledge of the document. Well, you and I have knowledge of the document. We're reading his story. What the It could have been the same thing. The membership agreement has evolved since Yahoo Sports first learned of its existence in February. Over the last few weeks, administrators received the latest version, but the document's future remains murky. A finalized version cannot be signed until the House settlement is granted, and she hasn't granted it yet. At this point, will schools sign a document that many legal experts contend creates legal issues for public universities? Are these concepts even enforceable? Arbitration itself isn't surprising, but saying that you agree not to follow your state law, that may or may not be enforceable, said Gabe Feldman, a sports law professor at Tulane and an expert on college sports legal matters. Okay. The last 10 years, we're not exactly on a roll with experts in a lot of different fields, okay? Although it sounds like Gabe has a handle on what's going on here. Hey, you want a long list of experts say, and it's not right. It's like, okay. So, no matter what the sides do, they're going to be sued. This is an effort to rein in the lawsuits. It's not just clear how enforceable all these provisions will be. Now, I'm trying to figure out why Tennessee even passed this law. Why? I don't understand why they did.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Signing an agreement that exempts a state university from following its own state law is particularly troubling, says Ramogi Huma, who's the executive director of the National College Players Association. That's especially true when the consequence is potential eviction from your own conference. Such a concept is actually addressed in the Tennessee state law. The law prevents an athletic association from adopting and enforcing rules that violate state law and prohibits any association from interfering with a school's membership status, voting rights, and revenue distribution. Huma has helped dozens of states adopt laws that provide their universities with advantages in NIL. He called the affiliation agreement a literal smoking gun in liability for public universities. Mitt Winter, sports law attorney at Kenny Hertz Perry LLC, who works with both schools and collectives, unearthed details of the Tennessee law last week. The law gives schools and third parties in the state cover to not follow rules that may be subject to antitrust scrutiny, he says. Many of the House settlement-related concepts, most notably the clearinghouse, could be in jeopardy. Even if Judge Wilkin approves the House settlement, her order will not address whether the new NCAA rules that come out of the House settlement comply with antitrust law. She's only ruling on whether there is a settlement agreement and whether it's fair to both sides. The settlement, an agreement by the NCAA and power conferences to settle consolidated lawsuits over athlete compensation, it really is 3 lawsuits in one, will usher in new, more professionalized models where schools can share millions of revenue with athletes and a cap system that features a new enforcement arm to police booster deals. It's in her hands now. Timetable is at her discretion. The settlement's revenue-sharing concept is scheduled to begin July 1st. At the center, of course, is the scrutiny around NIL Go that Deloitte is running. They're the clearinghouse. They were brought in to do that. Clearinghouse is using an algorithm established a compensation range for an assortment of deals, a concept that many legal experts expect to trigger a bevy of legal challenges. Deloitte officials went to the ACC spring meetings, which were not in Bismarck. They were at Amelia Island. North Dakota gets very few conventions.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
For some reason.
Same with Idaho. I don't get it.
By the way, the tush push is still in.
They vote in favor?
Tush push. Good. Deloitte officials shared notable figures that athletic directors and coaches, including that 70% of the past deals from booster collectives would have been denied, while 90% of past deals from public companies would have been approved. Okay. See, now that makes sense. That in terms of like what their research shows, that 70% of past deals from booster collectives would have been denied, but 90% of deals from public companies would be approved. Hi, I'm Jason Lord for Toys for Us.
Toys R Us or KB Toys? I thought they were my 2 big deals.
Wait. Now, I wouldn't have jumped the gun and bought the Jaguar.
Yeah,
I'd have waited for the check to clear first. In March, Deloitte shared more figures with administrators. 80% of NIL deals with public companies were valued at less than $10,000. 99% of those deals were valued at less than $100,000. See, that all makes sense, what I've heard over the years. That kind of jives with what I've heard. These figures suggest that the clearinghouse threatens to significantly curtail millions of dollars that school-affiliated booster-backed collectives are distributing to athletes, salaries that are masquerading as endorsement or commercial contracts. The affiliation agreement aims to, above all, protect the clearinghouse decisions, exempting it from lawsuits filed by schools and preventing those from circumventing the rules. Okay, so let's get to, state laws have been a prickly issue for the NCAA, no question. 14 states currently permit direct school-to-athlete payment. Another 9 states have laws prohibiting that. Remember, California was the first to say yes. Remember that? We were like, I don't know about this. Well, now everybody's following it. Roughly half of the states in the United States have adopted NIL laws with language that may delegitimize the impending House settlement. Now, Pennsylvania has laws on NIL, but I don't know if that does anything to this. I'd have to ask. So that's where we are. All right, so look. So what does college sports need right now? They need to get, as much as I have been, don't go to Congress, don't go to Congress, don't go to Congress. Congress has bigger things to do than this. But it's not like they can't multitask either. Okay, no jokes here, okay? All right.
I would never say that they see their shadow and take 6 weeks off.
Oh. Says the biggest.
We have some good congressmen locally. Very good congressmen in the state.
To the Muskie campaign. All right. But the NCAA and or the conferences need to have some sort of antitrust relief. And that has to come from Congress, which then in turn allows them to negotiate with the players a collective bargaining agreement. Now, I've already quoted HUMA, who was organized as College Players Association. And I think that is the only route here, because in all of this discussion here, who's left out? Who's left out of the discussion? The players. Okay? The players are the ones that are left out of the discussion. And I keep looking at it and like, okay, you have to have some forward-thinking people here. Now, I know you've got to, Charlie Baker, it's one thing, I'll say this for Charlie Baker. He at least understands the principles on Capitol Hill because he's a former governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The vote was 22-10.
22-10?
Yeah. On the tush push. Yes.
Well, if every team could do it, then I would understand the ban, but there are plenty of teams that can't do it. So that's where, look, they practiced it.
In other words, they missed by 2 votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need 24 votes to ban it.
Yeah.
They got 22.
Yeah. Yep. I can almost make one guarantee. On November 10th, there will be a push touchdown for the Eagles when they play the Packers on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
That's almost certain on that one. But, again, it's the only thing I think they should possibly do is tweak a little bit defensively, because you are at a disadvantage defensively on that play a little bit. But, no, in terms of fully ban it.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Not everybody can do it. If everybody's able to do it.
Do you know what the biggest problem is in defending it?
Yeah.
The lousy job you do on first and second down.
Yeah, and third down. Yeah.
Or if it's a fourth down.
If it's fourth down, yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
Third down. Because the tush push can only be used if it's
on 1 or 2 yards.
About 1 to 2 yards
Yeah.
out. Okay? It's 4th down and 4.
Mm-hmm. They're not running it. No. And that's,
third down and 4th, they're not running it.
No. And we've seen the Bills try it. We've seen the Packers try it. We've seen a lot of teams try it and not succeed. So it's not as if this play was unstoppable for every team, I'd understand it more.
So back to this, you need some sort of antitrust relief here that allows you to then negotiate with a players' association about, okay, here are the compensation rules. Here's the compensation cap. Here are the rules on transfers. Right? Here are the rules on academic eligibility. You can start going through a long list of things here. Here are the rules dealing with medical. Here are the rules as to whether or not you're considered to be an employee of the university. And those are the things that have to be negotiated. And I'm just doing some of the basics here, some of the big ones. There are other elements that are in there that, how many hours a week are you allowed to practice? Which is already a rule to begin with. It's supposed to be 20. But how many hours are you allowed in practice? How many hours are you allowed in film? There's all sorts of things that may or may not be negotiated here along the way. And Rick George said, the Colorado athletic director, we've got to stop trying to circumvent the rules. And that's always been one of the biggest problems with college sports and IndyCar racing, circumventing the rules. See what Penske did today?
No.
Penske fired his top 3 people because they're 2 cars.
Yep.
Joseph Newgarden, who's trying to win his 3rd straight Indy 500,
Yep.
and Will Power, who's won it before. Right? Those are his 2 primary cars of the race. All the 2 cars didn't
pass inspection.
Like, I mean, I'm talking like not even close. And guess who runs the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Yeah.
Roger Penske.
Roger Penske.
So
Yep.
this is his race. He's like, hey, yo. But that's got, and the point of that story is circumventing the rules. And that's always been the biggest problem. If you ever get a chance, Dave Revson, Big Ten Network, and I had Dave on the show talking about this
he's incredible.
years ago. Oh, Dave's one of the greatest guys
absolutely.
going. Jeez. I mean, Dave is something else. He wrote a book on the early days of college football. And you know what was one of the more interesting parts of the book? And Dave and I have talked about it. If you're reading the book, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about the 1880s and 90s and early 1900s. It's like no difference between then and now in terms of people like trying to get around rules.
Right.
So they could win. It's like this tush push thing. And you and I both know it's an illegal play. No, I'm just kidding. Right. Everybody's always looking for that edge. And over the years, how many times have people who have won been complimented for finding that edge? We need an edge.
Mm-hmm.
Over here in the back, how about execution? Yeah. Let's just try the execution part, see how it goes. Always been big on that. Always love. They're play calling. How about execution? No?
Mm-hmm.
No. Didn't think so? No.
That's too easy.
Yeah, let's execute the thing. So everybody's trying to find that edge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that play, that recruitment of somebody. They talk. It's something we talk about in sports all the time. College sports has been the worst when it comes to this. I mean, you have this. I mean, you know what the rumors are on the BYU basketball roster, right? Supposedly, because you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. I don't know where they get the money,
Right.
but their basketball roster is like $30 to $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at their roster. I don't think they're winning the Big 12. Kentucky's is like 20. Now, under all this, that would change.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay? That would change. Hi, I'm Jason Lord for Jack Daniels. I can't do that one.
Oh darn! I see that one. What is that? That would have made up for the 4 other failures.
Yeah, I know, but can't do it. It doesn't matter what era it's been. Everybody's always been looking to find out, okay, how can we find that edge? I mean, you saw what losing to Michigan did. Now, again, I'm not saying they did Ohio State, not even remotely accusing them of doing anything illegal.
No.
I'm not.
No.
Right? But they lost to Michigan 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And how much NIL money did they
quite a bit.
find for 2 purposes? A, roster retention.
Mm-hmm. Which I think gets overlooked a lot with what they were able to succeed
That's
last
what
year.
I talked about with Penn State.
Yeah.
Penn State, getting
Absolutely.
all those players back.
Yep.
At least a dozen players, I think,
Yeah.
I've named that they have back. Well, roster retention, and then the ability to say, okay, we need to get a Will Howard, we need to get a Caleb Downs, we need to get Quinton Judkins.
Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, who knows what it's taking for them to keep Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
I don't know. But they went out, and it was allegedly like a $20 million investment. Supposedly $12 million. The breakdown was allegedly $12 million for roster retention and $8 million for transfers. I mean, that's what ballpark what's been alleged, which is fine. It's not illegal. But you notice how, like, hey, we can't have this happen again. Mm-hmm. Well, they still lost to Michigan, but they won the national championship.
National championship, though. Yep.
Right. So that's under the current rules. What they did was legal. Under past rules, it's illegal. Under current rules, absolutely legal. Under future rules, some of that might not pass muster. Because they're trying to put these, the clearinghouse stuff in place. But this is what you've had since the beginning of time. I mean, there's a college basketball team that won a national championship with a National Player of the Year, who played 1 year and then went to the NBA, and it was alleged, this is years ago, it was alleged that he got $200,000. There's the Derrick Rose situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is legal now?
Yeah.
Was not legal then under the rules.
Right.
And that's one of the issues you have with the NCAA is that over and over and over again. See, but the NCAA, we talk about collective bargaining on this. This is what makes the NCAA different than pro sports. If I'm sitting there and I'm Roger Goodell, I'm out there negotiating on behalf of 32 owners against a core group of players that play in the National Football League. If I'm Gary Bettman, I'm 32 owners, players of the National Hockey League Players Association. Adam Silver, 30 teams in the National Basketball Association and the NBAPA. Okay, Rob Manfred, lead negotiator, getting my butt buried. No, Rob Manfred negotiating against Tony Clark and the Major League Baseball Players Association, who played baseball. The difference is with this $20.5 million is it's not just a football contract. It's not just a basketball contract. Right? It is football scheduled to get the majority of it. Basketball expected to get the second, and then it's divided up among others as the athletic department sees fit. So this all-encompassing deal is that when you're negotiating all this, how do the other sports fall in line here? Is this athletes association representing all of them or some of them? Because when they talk about how much money is brought in, look how much money is being brought in by football. Okay? Look how much money is being brought in by basketball in the NCAA basketball tournament. Nobody else. Okay? And I don't refer to them anymore. What's the saying about that? They're revenue producing sports. Oh, no. That's not how I term it. Are they profit producing sports? There's a difference.
Big difference.
Okay? I mean, let's start using the right terminology here. There are only two profit producing sports: football, men's basketball.
Yep.
Everybody else operates in the red, and some deep in the red. Right?
Agreed.
Right? Deep in the red. It's the way life is. I mean, it's something I've talked about repeatedly on the show. People, and there's some people and they act like I'm picking on certain sports when I talk about them. I deliberately pick out sports that are ultra successful, are ultra attended, and lose money. Tells you how difficult it is to make money in sports. That's the point I've been trying to make for years. I am not picking on your sport. If you think I'm picking on your sport, you have a massive maturity problem. Okay? You have to use critical thinking. I'm trying to induce some critical thinking here with some people to tell you how difficult it is and why it is important to make sure football and, to a secondary extent, men's basketball need to be healthy. That way your sport can survive. Because on its own, your sport on its own will be walking in the wilderness in the winter looking for food, and you're not going to find it.
Yep.
Which means you're not going to make it. And the reason I pick out certain sports, again, ultra successful sports, great, deliver tons of pride, draw fans, but lose money left and right because they don't have TV deals. And don't start getting me into this. Well, the Big Ten, no, okay. Look at the commercial output of a football or basketball game, and then look at the commercial output of the sport you love. I mean, look at the. I mean, okay. There's only so many times you can see one sponsor over and over again. I got it. Okay? But am I thrilled they're on TV? Yeah, because I watch. I'm thrilled they're on TV. I watch. Okay? But they're not profit-producing sports. The expenses versus revenue is a route. Okay? I'm talking about like not even close to turning a profit. Like I'm talking legitimate 7-figure losses. Well, let's put it in terms you understand.
Yeah.
9 figures.
Nine figures. Yeah.
But you're talking about 7-figure losses. So that's why, to me, it's difficult for an entity to negotiate with the Players Association because, like, Penn State has 833 athletes on campus. And when we're talking about all of this stuff here, about revenue distribution, state laws, and things like that, everybody's thinking about what? Football and basketball, right? They're not thinking about other sports. But other sports have to be included in any agreement because those athletes are affected too. Now, I think what's important is what would be great for the clearinghouse to make apparent is the ability of an athlete, for example, to do a sponsored podcast. I think that would pass mustard. Because you've got a lot of them doing their own podcasts right now, and they have fun with it. And they, they're able to sell advertising and things like that. A lot of people texting you.
No.
It's an average day.
That's, a little bit.
Awful. Well, another great day today. I looked out and I saw the dark skies, the rain.
Yeah.
And this kind of felt like co-hosting with you today fit in.
There it is.
Ay, ay, ay. All right.